My motivation for writing this book grew out of my 30 years as a management consultant and venture capitalist. And during that time, I worked with a lot of companies who were struggling to restore profitability and reignite growth. And so when I joined the faculty at Columbia Business School a decade ago, I made the issue of growth strategy the focus of my research. Now, the troubling reality is that very few companies have actually been able to sustain profitable growth over multiple decades. In fact, less than 15% of the Fortune Global 100 companies have done so, according to one definitive study. And other research has confirmed that the rate at which companies get knocked off their market leadership positions has been accelerating over the past 2 decades. So my motivation for writing this book is really to answer two vexing questions that actually appear more relevant today than when I started my business career. The first is, why is it so hard for companies to sustain above market performance? And second, relatedly, is what can companies do to beat the odds in securing the holy grail of business, namely long-term profitable growth? I often get asked what the animal metaphor, if you're in a dogfight, become a cat, has to do with business strategy. Well, the curious title of my book reflects on a common cause of stalled growth that I've observed, namely the tendency of competitors to get caught in a tit-for-tat replication of product features and functions, which causes categories as a whole to lose really meaningful differentiation. And if you have any doubt that this is an issue, ask yourself if you think there's really a big distinction between Huggies or Pampers diapers, or between United and American Airlines. In such circumstances, this feature-function arms race leaves many consumers confused, or poorly served, or in some cases just priced out of the market. And these are really become the symptoms of many mature markets which suffer slow growth, declining margins, and increasing price resistance. So as a metaphor, consider the mental image conjured up by a dogfight, where rival dogs are scratching and clawing for territorial advantage, often battling with largely similar tactics. Now, in dogfights, as in business, one strong player may gain a temporary advantage, but the ongoing fight for dominance is usually going to take a heavy toll on all combatants, and the prospect for renewed battles is going to be a constant threat. Now, on the other hand, cats are an entirely different breed of animal. They're clever, they're solitary hunters, and they're more inclined to explore new territory and redefine the game on their own terms, rather than engaging with the pack in a no-win dogfight. So in business terms, I make the case in my book that companies that have achieved the greatest success exhibit cat-like behavior in breaking away from the competitive herd by continuously innovating and changing the rules of the game that winds up better serving their customers and achieving superior business performance. Let me give you some examples of companies that have achieved long-term growth. And the good news, for starters, is that while uncommon, there's still a lot of companies that span many industries that have achieved long-term profitable growth. Now, the undisputed superstar today has to be Amazon, who, under Jeff Bezos, has become the fastest company to reach $100 billion in sales, and Jeff's created more shareholder value than any current sitting CEO. But, growth superstars aren't limited just to the tech sector. Look at Starbucks or Costco or FedEx. They're examples of other companies that have been outperforming the markets since they launched 2 to 4 decades ago. And the real long-term superstars are 3M and J&J, who are still posting above-average growth more than a century after their founding. Long-term growth can be done. Well, that leads to the question then, what are the characteristics of these growth superstars? Well, growth companies avoid competitive dogfights and break away from the pack by embracing 3 business imperatives. The first is continuous innovation. Now, innovation not for its own sake, but to deliver, secondly, meaningful product differentiation. That is, different products that are recognized and valued as such by consumers. And all of this is enabled by the third imperative, business alignment, wherein all of a company's capabilities and resources, incentives, and business culture and processes are aligned to support the company's mission. Now, this prescription may seem to draw on a heavy dose of common sense, but it turns out to be a lot more difficult and rare for companies to actually incorporate these imperatives as the foundation of their business. And that underscores the objective of this book, which is to explore why this is and what to do about it. So if you were to ask me who should read this book, I'll try to avoid my author's instinct of saying everyone, because I actually wrote this book with two audiences in mind. The first is next generation business leaders. Now, the key themes explored in this book draw from my strategy and corporate entrepreneurship courses at Columbia Business School, so business students should find the topics of relevance and interest. But I also hope the lessons learned and the dozens of examples of both corporate successes and failures will also resonate with executives who are currently seeking the holy grail of sustained profitable growth in their own careers.